Burritos or barbecue?
Ooh, you know what? I'm feeling barbecue today. But before we go, I got some new lucky dice for the car. All right, now we can make the jump to hyperspace. You ready to make the jump?
Ready.
All right, watch this. Oh, they said they fixed it. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. Hello there, fellow maker. Bill here. Welcome to the shop. Today I'm going to show you how I made Han Solo's lucky dice using 3D printing. If you're just getting into 3D printing, this is an awesome prop to get started on. It's small, low time commitment, and I'm going to show you exactly how I 3D modeled the whole thing so that you can follow along at home. Let's head on over to the computer. The first step for creating our dice is to get some reference images, and the user ZapWizard over in the RPF has put together this really great reference. I'll have a link, of course, to this post in the description of this video if you want to go check it out. But I'm going to grab this image and I'm going to use that for my 3D model. I'll be 3D modeling my dice in Fusion 360, but these operations are pretty standard for most 3D modeling applications. Let's start by making a cube. I'm going to create a box. We'll put it right here, and it will be, let's say, 15 millimeters squared. And we'll bring it up 15 millimeters, just like that. That is our die. To make the details on the sides of our dice, we will want to add our reference image. I'm going to attach a canvas to this and go grab my file. This is the image we got before. I can drop it on there, and I'm going to look at one of the sides of our piece here and just scale this up until it is the right size and move it right in position. And that's about it. I'm going to display through so that I can see through it. And now that reference is right on that face. So I can grab that face and draw a little sketch. I'm going to start with a circle and draw it about the right size. Then we'll just draw a couple lines across it. Like so. And another one down here. And stop the sketch. I can hide my canvas and grab these faces and extrude them in. So I'll right click on that and go to extrude and pull them in. Let's make it minus 1.5 millimeters. And that's the first face of our dice. And we just repeat that on all the faces. And again, we've got that face there, and I can draw my sketch. I'm going to make a new sketch on here. I'm also going to draw a midline for this one. And not necessary, but I can make that a construction line. And then I'm going to draw half of this straight up. Zoom in, because there's a little bit of an angle there. And then straight down. And I'll do the same thing over here. And then for this one, I'm going to mirror it. So we'll go to Sketch, Mirror. We'll grab all of our pieces to mirror. Grab my mirror line right there. And hit OK. And then stop the sketch. Again, hide my canvas. And grab those faces. One more time. Extrude them in. We're going to go in negative 1.5. And there's the next face of our die. Those are the simple operations that we're going to use to do all the rest of these faces. So here's our die with all the symbols in it. Just want to tweak a couple things. I think this part here should go in. I can extrude it down a touch. Let's say minus 0.5, half a millimeter, so it's not flush with the surface. The last thing I want to do before sending this off to the 3D printer is to round over all these edges. For that, we're going to use a fillet. I'm going to grab that command and then select all of the edges to round them over. There we go. I think I got them all. And now let's try a 1 millimeter fillet. That looks pretty good. Let's try 2 millimeters. That might be a bit much. I can just look at my reference images and decide if that's what I want. Let's say maybe 1.5. For this, I'm just looking at some reference images and deciding how much I think I should round that over. And I think 1.5 looks pretty good. The great news is this is a very tiny piece, so I could 3D print one and see how it looks. It wouldn't take very much time or very much filament. And if it's not quite right, I can tweak it and print it again. One last thing I should probably do is add a hole for the chain. To make my hole, I'm going to create a cylinder. Let's just drop it right there for now. Let's say 1.5 millimeters in diameter, and we'll make it as long as we need it. and make it a new body. I don't want to connect it with what I had before. And then that cylinder can be rotated. Let's move it 45 degrees that way. 45 degrees in this direction. There we go. I've got my cylinder position. Then I can go modify, combine, that with that, and cut. We punched a little hole through it, and we can feed a loop for our chain through there once it's printed. Speaking of printing, go to 3D print, click on our object, and save the STL file. Then we can dump it into our slicing software of choice. For this first try, I'm going to print it on the Ultimaker, so I'll just import it into Cura. Boop. There's our little die ready to go. I'm going to print this at 0.06, the highest detail that the Ultimaker 2 will do. And we'll see how it goes. It's going to take a little over an hour to print. Not that bad. So why don't we throw it at the machine and see how it looks. These pieces were printed on my Ultimaker. I printed it at the highest detail possible, and I printed it in ABS because ABS is a lot easier to sand than PLA. And sanding is exactly what I did. Once I removed all of the support material, I used a combination of sandpaper and needle files to start cleaning up that surface finish. The bottom face of my die needed to be carved out a little bit. The support material actually filled in all of that detail. Once I sanded the whole finish down to about a 220 grit, I went in with a rotary tool and a small detail grinding bit to get some of the lower detail parts. I could have spent all day sanding and polishing this, but I think I got it to a pretty good point. At least good enough for me. Once the dice were nice and smooth and those layer lines were all gone, I hit everything with a primer to get it ready for paint. These are supposed to look like a gold or a brass piece, so I went with my favorite Alclad chrome paints. These are applied with an airbrush. I started by putting down a dust layer of gloss black, and then I went back over that again with a much heavier wet coat to leave a nice shiny reflective black coat. Then I swapped over to the polished brass lacquer paint from Alclad, and I got one good layer on there to make everything look like a really shiny brass. And finally, I wanted to protect this, so I went with their aqua gloss, and again, used that airbrush to coat everything with a nice protective coat. The last bit of paint was just a little bit of weathering. I like using oil paints for this type of work. I brushed a bunch of that oil paint down into the crevices on my dice, and then using a paper towel, I wiped most of it away. That left a little bit of grime in those crevices, making this look more real and more metal. The very last thing was to add a chain. I picked up some chains from my local craft store in a couple of different sizes. The bigger loop was put around the hole through my dice, and then that bigger loop was used to attach to the smaller chain. I did that to connect the two dice together, and that was it. This was a really fun little project. The modeling took me about 10 minutes. The printing was just a couple of hours, and then the finishing also only took a couple of hours. It was really fun to put together. And there you go, my new lucky dice. I don't know if I can put these on my rearview mirror. I'm pretty sure that's illegal in most states, but I'll find a good place to hang this up in the shop. Hey, thanks for checking out the video. I hope this inspires you to go try a little bit of 3D modeling and 3D printing for some simple prop work. We do have some other 3D printing videos if you're looking to get into that. We'll have links down below to more 3D printing projects for your prop and costume making needs. And of course, everything I used in this video will be linked down below. If you have any questions about this build, then give me a holler down in the comments. I'd be happy to help you out. Hey, thank you for hanging out with me in the shop today. If you've got some cool builds that you've been putting together, please share them with me over on Twitter. I'm @ChinBeard. Same thing on Instagram. That's all I have for you today. Thanks again so much for checking out the video. I'll catch you in the next build.